Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. The air was thick with an oppressive weight as the sun dipped low behind the jagged skyline of Eldridge. Shadows lengthened, the light fading, casting a sepulchral glow over the cracked pavement of Oakwood Street. It was a quaint neighborhood at first glance, a faded relic of post-war prosperity. Shuttered bungalows lined the block, their once vibrant paint peeling beneath layers of neglect. Rusted bicycles lay abandoned on lawns now overtaken by wild grass. In the heart of this seemingly benign community, a storm was brewing. It began with a whisper and unsettling rustle on the fringes of the local diner, where residents gathered to share tales over greasy plates of comfort food. A child had gone missing, an innocent wisp of a girl with pigtails and a penchant for mischief. It was a Saturday morning when Anna Thompson, just 7, didn't come home for lunch. Her mother, Margaret, felt that tug at the gut that comes when something is terribly wrong. As the sun climbed higher, dread settled upon her heart, an unwelcome guest taking root. Hours passed. The usual cheerfulness of Oakwood Street dulled to a muted hum of anxiety. It was a community on edge, the silence around them heavy with unspoken fears. As Stanton police arrived with lights flashing, the familiar streets transformed. This wasn't just missing person. This was the ugly reminder that darkness lurked even in the most innocent corners of life. The search began, uniting strangers, yet fracturing the fragile assurances that the neighborhood had held dear. The victim. Anna Thompson was a radiant spark in a world that often felt muted. At 7 years old, her energy was infectious, a whirl of laughter and uncontainable curiosity. Neighbors would catch glimpses of her in the mornings, her pigtails bobbing as she rode her bright pink bicycle with streamers fluttering in the wind. Her infectious giggles echoed between the houses, a sound that left an imprint of joy on anyone lucky enough to hear it. Growing up an only child, Anna reveled in the attention she bestowed upon her loving parents, Margaret and David. From homemade cookies to arts and crafts, their bond was woven tightly. They had an evening ritual, taking turns reading fairy tales, her eyes wide with wonder. Living in stories where bravery reigns and goodness triumphed. Margaret often mused that her daughter felt like a dream come alive, her spirit untamed and vibrant. But like all children, the veil of innocence masked the unpredictability of life. On that fateful Saturday, Anna had woken with the sun, her little heart set on adventure in the dwindling autumn warmth. She promised her mother she would stay close, her golden curls bouncing with enthusiasm as she bolted from the kitchen. The neighborhood was a playground, full of familiar faces and laughter, a protective cocoon, or so they thought. As darkness crept in and hope began to wane, a certain reality settled in. With each passing hour, the sweet girl's absence turned from alarming to heartbreaking. Friends of the family banded together, fanning out across the streets. But every parent knows, deep down, that the world can twist cruelly when you least expect it. A neighborhood once filled with laughter now became the crime scene. As the search efforts continued into the night, its urgency transformed the calm veneer of Eldridge into a canvas of chaos. Police floodlights illuminated the surrounding area, casting an artificial brilliance that banished shadows, but could not extinguish the unease. Officers combed through the neighborhood, their flashlights cutting through the darkness in sweeping arcs, scanning for signs of the girl who had vanished so suddenly. The hard asphalt of Oakwood Street glistened with dew, and the air hung heavy with a weight that was unmistakable. It was here, just a few blocks from the Thompson household, that the search party gathered in hushed tones, exchanging nervous glances as officers cordoned off a large section of the street. There lay a dilapidated playground, decades-old equipment half obscured by the night, its metal frames rusted and creaking softly in the wind. A disturbance had been reported near the swings, where a tangle of wild grass had grown unchecked. When officers approached, they discovered what looked like a pink hair ribbon something vibrant amid the muted overtones of twilight. A flash of hope ignited, only to be extinguished by a more daunting reality. The sight of the ribbon, delicate and forlorn, sent tremors through the gathered crowd. It was a subtle but potent symbol, a cruel reminder of the child's disappearance. The air turned colder as investigators meticulously preserved the area, marking off the play equipment and canvassing nearby homes for security footage, adhering to the hopes that answers lay closer than they feared. Anxiety tightened its grip, and with every beep of a radio or insistent voice on the walkie-talkie, the community felt the tightening noose of uncertainty. A child was gone, and with her, a fragment of their innocence. The early investigation, with the sun's first light creeping over the horizon, the community of Eldridge braced itself for another day, overshadowed by anxiety. The air, crisp and cool, carried with it a sense of restless urgency, as volunteers gathered with coffee and determined expressions, ready to aid the search efforts. The police presence intensified. Investigators swarmed the neighborhood, their focus sharp, seeking any lead that could propel them closer to the truth. The early investigation centered around Anna's last known whereabouts. Officers interviewed neighbors, scribbling notes in notepads as they scanned for potential leads. Margaret recounted Anna's excitement about playing in the playground, her eyes clouded with worry and disbelief. She promised she'd be back for lunch, Margaret said, her voice shaky yet resolute. She never breaks her promises. The sentiment resonated with everyone. Present a child's innocence tarnished, unraveling lives intertwined in unimaginable ways. One officer, Detective Jack Miller, took a keen interest in Anna's circle of friends, gathering them in the warmth of the community center. He sought to glean any fragment of information that might help. The children sat, faces drawn tight but innocent, their voices muted by the weighted gravity of the situation. Their accounts were peppered with vague, muddled details, as they desperately tried to make sense of the chaos. They spoke of a stranger seen lurking around, a man in a dark coat, but their descriptions were hazy, slipping like sand through fingers. Meanwhile, forensic specialists meticulously examined the playground, sifting through the dirt for any sign of evidence. Dust mixed with hope and despair as they collected samples. About to diversify their approach, they soon realized that identifying a potential perpetrator was as vital as finding Anna if she could still be found. The dead ends. Days melted into one another as the search for Anna drifted from active pursuit to an unnerving stillness. Early leads began to fade like the autumn leaves scattered across the ground, and each day passed with no signs of the little girl. The relentless ticking of the clock weighed heavily on the hearts of every resident, the initial fervor of hope giving way to darkening apprehension. As the investigation expanded, police canvassed the area beyond immediate neighbors, interviewing everyone who might have been in the vicinity that Saturday morning. They explored alleyways and vacant lots, but the once vibrant accounts of potential witnesses soon blurred into vague recollection. The mysterious man in a dark coat that the children had described proved to be an illusory figure, vanishing beneath layers of uncertainty and fragmented memories. Detective Miller felt the sting of frustration with each follow-up. He meticulously reviewed the footage from nearby stores. Days turned into hours of scouring grainy images, searching for that pivotal moment, a glimpse that could lead to answers. But with each frame analyzed, the feeling of futility grew. The thrill of possibility dwindled as the investigation produced more dead ends than fruitful leads. Only rumors flourished, feeding the whispers of paranoia that mushroomed within the community. While locals shared stories conjured from pure fear and desperation, others brewed from Malaceno, real evidence emerged. Each false lid hung in the air like a ghost, suffocating any lingering hope. In a town once defined by its charm and familiarity, doubt began to creep into conversations. The simple warmth of community suffocated by the shadow of a child's absence. A break in the case. Just as despair threatened to suffocate the hope that lingered on the fringes, a shimmer of possibility emerged on the edge of Eldridge days. It arrived unexpectedly, ignited by the vigilant eyes of a local resident. Eva Peterson, who had harvested her own garden of anxiety in the weeks since Anna's disappearance. Regularly walking the neighborhood, she knew its every crevice, its every whisper of wind through the trees. On this gray Wednesday morning, while strolling near an unattended field at the end of Oakwood Street, Eva noticed a strange-shaped mound among the tall grasses. Something wasn't right. The uneven ground sparked her suspicion. Crouching down, her pulse quickened as she approached. Kneeling, she unearthed a hidden bundle caught beneath the tangled weeds' bright pink shoes, strikingly recognizable even under a layer of dirt. Heart hammering, she recalled Anna's radiant smile and the very shoes her daughter had lovingly gifted her weeks before. Panicking yet resolute, she immediately dialed 911, her voice trembling as she relayed the details. Within moments, police descended upon the scene, bringing with them a renewed energy, the kind that had long eluded them. Detective Miller arrived, surveying the area with a combination of hope and dread brimming in his chest. A quick forensic examination tentatively confirmed the shoes were indeed Anna's, the first tangible evidence they had found since the initial search began. A sense of urgency ignited the department's efforts, a communal understanding that with this discovery, the investigation turned towards a new trajectory. The officers set up a perimeter and began searching the surrounding field meticulously, prepared to uncover the truth that had remained buried for too long. Though this was a fragile breakthrough, the path ahead remained unclear. Yet newfound determination surged through the air, resonating through the community cloaked in uncertainty. The suspect. The discovery of Anna's shoes breathed new life into the investigation, galvanizing the community into a wave of renewed vigilance. But beneath the surface of hope, underlying tension, officers assembled to scrutinize the records of registered offenders in the area. Their eyes scoured through names and addresses like lifelines thrown into an ocean of uncertainty, each entry representing a potential thread to unravel. In the back of the cramped precinct, a name emerged: a man named Lucas Barrow, a resident notorious for his erratic behavior and a prior conviction for child endangerment. While he had served his time, whispers about his strange habits hung in the air like smoke. Neighbors reported seeing him wandering around the neighborhood in the weeks leading up to Anna's disappearance, his eyes casting furtive glances, a figure shrouded in unease. Detective Miller's gut twisted as he delved deeper into Barrow's history. The man had no known connections to Anna or her family, but his proximity to the scene of her last known movements rendered him an immediate person of interest. Outside, the community buzzed with speculation, eager to grasp at any string of clarity amid the chaos. Social media lit up with heated discussions and fears. People were wary, watching their children more closely. Police surveillance began to shadow Barrow, trailing his movements as he traversed between crumbling buildings in the neighborhood. He was often seen late at night, muttering to himself, hands shoved deep into his pocket. As officers observed from concealed spots, they began piecing together his routine, waiting for a crack, a slip of tongue, anything to tie him directly to Anna's case. But as the hours folded into days, doubt silently seeped into their investigation. Barrow seemed more lost than malicious, caught in a cycle of despair rather than intent. The lingering question pulsed: was he a mere distraction, an unfortunate man caught in the web of fear as they sought the real predator in the shadows? The trial. Weeks turned into months, and the investigation that had consumed Eldridge began to culminate in a courtroom filled with tension and grim expectancy. The air was thick with anticipation as residents gathered in the small courthouse, whispers of anxiety swirling among them. Lucas Barrow stood accused of Anna Thompson's abduction, his fate hanging in the balance. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere felt charged with emotion. Family members of Anna arrived early, each face a testament to their heartbreak, a visceral reminder of the little girl who once filled their lives with joy. Margaret and David, weary from sleepless nights, still wore the remnants of hope, mingled with profound loss. They didn't just seek justice. They yearned for answers, for the truth to unravel so that they might find some semblance of closure. The prosecution painted Barrow as a troubled man whose past behavior suggested a potential predator lurking beneath a guise of normalcy. Witness testimony from neighbors lent weight to the narrative of a man who had fascinated himself with the playground and the children who played there. Yet, Barrow's defense attorney presented a differing view, arguing that the accusations against him stemmed from a chaotic landscape of community fear rather than solid evidence. His history was troubling, but not inherently damp. As the days wore on, jurors listened intently, grappling with conflicting narratives that unfolded before them. Each testimony was another thread in a complex tapestry, woven with sorrow, accusations, and the haunting question of human nature. What drives a person towards darkness? In the days leading up to the verdict, tension simmered palpably outside the courthouse. Media coverage escalated, cameras pressed against barriers, capturing the breadth of community emotions. Eldridge remained divided, some rallying behind the Thompsons while others defended Barrow, fueled by empathy and skepticism alike. The reality of a child's disappearance hung heavy as they awaited the decisive moment that could reshape their community forever. The aftermath, the verdict arrived wrapped in a shroud of mixed emotions. The gavel's echo a cold ringing in the warm hearts of the community. Lucas Barrow was found not guilty, acquitted of all charges due to a lack of concrete evidence linking him to Anna's disappearance. The jury's decision sent tremors through Eldridge, igniting chaos among the masses outside the courthouse. Many shouted accusations of failure against the justice system, and some lashed out at Barrow as he emerged, a free man assumed guilty in the eyes of public sentiment. For the Thompsons, the decision crushed any lingering hopes of resolution. Margaret crumbled, burying her face in David's arms, as tears of disbelief mingled with the bitterness of injustice. They had held on to the threads of hope that perhaps this trial might provide healing, the faintest hint of closure. Instead, they confronted the harsh reality that Anna remained absent, her fate still shrouded in mystery. In the following weeks, Eldridge felt the weight of sorrow transform into a suffocating haze. The laughter that once echoed through Oakwood Street faded into a painful silence. Parents hovered more protectively over their children while others turned to share stories, driven by fear and the need for connection, supporting one another against invisible threats that seemed to lurk in every shadow. Despite Barrow's acquittal, a subtle shift occurred in the community. Places once frequented by children saw declined playgrounds became ghost towns, and whispers of suspicion painted newfound darkness, even across familiar streets. As the seasons changed, so too did the landscape of lives irrevocably altered by the ripples of Anna's disappearance. As hope waned and uncertainty crept in, the unsolved case persisted in the back of minds like a shadow. In the depths of their hearts, the Thompsons carried the weight of knowing that their precious Anna remained missing, leaving an indelible mark on the fabric of their lives and their community, a reminder of the fragility of innocence. Reflection. Months passed, and the chill of winter swept over Eldridge, blanketing the town in white. For the Thompsons, the days had merged into a series of muted moments, filled with haunting sight. Margaret frequently visited the empty room once occupied by Anna, her fingers brushing the untouched toys and the crayon-drawn artwork that still adorned the wall. Each glance at the little chair, the faint smell of baby powder clinging to the fabric, felt like a collision of reality and a dream she couldn't wake from. David often wandered into the depths of the neighborhood, retracing steps he'd taken with his daughter. Along the familiar paths, he discovered a strange juxtaposition and unseasonable beauty clashed with the shadows that danced in the corners of his mind. The world continued to ripple onward, yet his own life felt frozen in time, held hostage by grief and unanswered questions. Support from some quarters of the community remained steadfast. Even as rumors of Barrow faded, people created events in Anna's honor, drawing attention to child safety initiatives, metamorphosing pain into purpose. In their reflective moments, the Thompsons found solace in knowing that their daughter had become a beacon for their community, a call to vigilance that would not be dimmed. But as night fell, the emptiness settled deep, a void that echoed the bittersweet laughter of a child forever gone. They clutched tightly to one another, their bond unbroken despite the throes of tragedy. They resolved to carry Anna's memory forward, vowing that she would never be forgotten.